I never imagined the moment that ended my marriage would happen in the middle of a backyard barbecue. My name is Daniel Carter. I'm 49 years old, and I own a commercial roofing company in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'd spent nearly 20 years building that business one contract at a time. My wife, Lauren, and I had been married for 13 years. She came into the marriage with a 7-year-old son named Ethan. His biological father disappeared before Ethan learned to ride a bike. I was the one who taught him. I paid for Little League uniforms, braces, private school when he struggled in public school, his first pickup truck, and eventually his tuition at Oklahoma State. I never asked him to call me Dad. I thought respect couldn't be bought, only earned. Looking back, maybe that was my first mistake. The barbecue happened on a warm Saturday in early June. Lauren insisted we host everyone because Ethan had just been accepted into graduate school. She invited nearly 30 relatives and neighbors. I bought the steaks, rented extra tables, hired a local barbecue company to smoke brisket all afternoon, and stocked enough drinks to fill 3 coolers. By 4 o'clock, the backyard looked like something from a magazine. Kids were running across the lawn. Lauren's sisters were laughing under the patio umbrella. Country music drifted quietly through the outdoor speakers. Everything looked perfect. Around 6, Ethan gathered everyone near the patio to make a toast. He stood on one of the wooden benches holding a bottle of beer while everyone clapped. "I just want to thank the people who actually believed in me," he said. Everyone smiled. My mom, obviously. Lauren raised her glass proudly. My grandparents. More applause. My Uncle Steve for helping me get my internship. Another round of cheers. I smiled too. I honestly thought he was building toward thanking me last. Instead, Ethan looked directly at me. And I guess thanks to Daniel. A few people laughed awkwardly. "You've always been good at paying bills." The laughter became louder. He lifted his bottle toward me. "Not everyone gets lucky enough to marry a walking ATM." More laughter. I forced a smile. Then he added something that changed everything. "Honestly, if Mom ever divorces you, she'll probably get half your company anyway, so I guess all those tuition payments were really just an investment." This time people didn't laugh immediately. They looked at Lauren, waiting for her to stop him. Lauren smiled. Actually smiled. "Oh, Ethan." She shook her head playfully. "Don't tease, Daniel." That was it. No correction. No apology. Nothing. Her brother laughed loud enough for everyone to hear. Someone near the grill muttered, "Kid's got a point." Another cousin raised his beer. To Daniel, the richest wallet in Tulsa. The entire backyard erupted again. I stood there holding a paper plate with untouched brisket growing cold in my hands. I looked around slowly. Nobody looked uncomfortable. Nobody looked embarrassed. Not even Lauren. She walked over, squeezed Ethan's shoulder proudly, then turned toward me. "Oh, don't be so sensitive." I asked one quiet question. "So that's really how everyone sees me?" Lauren sighed dramatically. "Oh, Daniel. You always make everything about yourself." Ethan laughed again. "You know what's funny?" "What?" "You actually think you have authority around here." I stared at him. "I helped raise you. You helped pay." The yard became completely silent. Then Lauren folded her arms. "Daniel, he's 20 now. You don't get to lecture him. You're not his father." I nodded once. Only once. Nobody noticed. The barbecue continued almost immediately. Music came back on. People returned to eating. Lauren's sister started passing out slices of pie as though nothing had happened. I carried my untouched plate to the trash can. Threw everything away. Picked up an empty lawn chair. Folded it carefully. Then another. Then another. Lauren noticed. "What are you doing?" "Cleaning." "Leave it. I'll finish." She shrugged. "Fine." For the next 40 minutes I quietly folded chairs while everyone celebrated Ethan. Nobody thanked me. Nobody offered to help. Every few minutes someone would ask where more drinks were. I simply pointed toward the cooler. Around 9:30 everyone finally started leaving. Lauren hugged every guest. Ethan disappeared inside without saying goodnight. Lauren walked back onto the patio carrying 2 empty serving trays. "You've been weird all evening." "I know. You're still upset?" "No." "Then what?" I looked directly at her. For the first time in years, I think I finally understand my place in this family. She rolled her eyes. Oh, please, don't be dramatic. I smiled, a genuine smile, not because I was happy, because something inside me had become strangely peaceful. That frightened her more than anger ever could. She stared at me for several seconds. What? Nothing. You look different. I probably do. That night she fell asleep within minutes. I didn't. At 2:30 in the morning I sat alone in my home office with a yellow legal pad. Across the top I wrote one sentence. Everything connected to my name. Then I began making a list. Ethan's graduate tuition, his apartment, the truck, insurance, health coverage, credit card, phone, gym membership, fuel card, streaming accounts, the family vacation fund, his investment account I'd been contributing to since he was 12, one line after another. By sunrise, the list contained 19 items, and I already knew exactly which phone call I would make first. I arrived at my office before 7 the next morning. Normally I liked easing into Mondays with coffee and email. This wasn't going to be a normal Monday. I opened my laptop, pulled the yellow legal pad closer, and wrote the numbers beside each item. 19 responsibilities, 19 monthly payments, 19 choices I had made over 13 years because I believed we were building one family. At exactly 7:30, I made the first call. Oklahoma State University's finance office. After confirming my identity, I explained that I was removing myself as Ethan Carter's third-party tuition sponsor, effective immediately. The woman on the phone hesitated. Sir, the fall semester balance becomes the student's responsibility. I understand. Would you like to leave the sponsorship active until the current semester ends? No. 3 minutes later, it was done. One line crossed off. Next came the truck. The loan had always been in my name because Ethan's credit history wasn't strong enough when he turned 18. The bank representative recognized my voice immediately. Morning, Mr. Carter. I'd like to begin voluntary repossession procedures. A brief silence. Is everything okay? It will be. Another line crossed out. Then the insurance company. Health insurance, vehicle insurance, roadside assistance, supplemental accident coverage. Every policy connected to Ethan disappeared one after another. None of the representatives asked many questions. People process cancellations every day. To them, it was paperwork. To me, it felt like closing doors that had stayed open far longer than they should have. At 8:40, I called the apartment complex. The manager, Rebecca, had known me for years. Daniel, morning. I wasn't expecting your call. I need to withdraw my guarantor agreement. She didn't answer immediately. You know what that means. I do. Ethan won't qualify for renewal. I understand. Should I call him? Please do. But send everything in writing. I will. Another line, then the phone company. I removed Ethan from the family plan. His number stopped working before I even hung up. Then the credit card. The bank employee asked politely if the authorized user had been informed. That's a personal matter. I understand. Your request has been completed. Blocked. Immediately. By 9:15, every financial connection between Ethan and me had disappeared. I leaned back in my chair. Outside my office window, downtown Tulsa looked exactly the same as it had every other Monday. Traffic, construction workers, people carrying coffee. Nobody knew my entire life had changed before breakfast. At 9:47, my phone started vibrating. Lauren. I ignored it. 5 minutes later, she called again. Then Ethan. Then Lauren again. Text messages began arriving faster than I could count. What's going on? Why isn't Ethan's phone working? The university says tuition hasn't been paid. Answer your phone. I placed the phone face down. At 10:20, my assistant Megan knocked softly. Everything okay? Yes, she looked unconvinced. Your wife called the office. What did you tell her? That you were unavailable. Good, she nodded. I've never seen you ignore her calls. Neither have I. She quietly closed the door. At 11:05, the reception desk called. Daniel? Yes. Ethan is downstairs. I looked at the clock. Tell him I'm in a meeting. He says he'll wait. Then let him wait. 40 minutes later, reception called again. He's still here. I know. At noon, I walked downstairs through the private elevator that opened into the underground parking garage. I left through the employee entrance. Ethan never saw me. Around 2 in the afternoon, my accountant, Richard, arrived carrying 2 folders. I came as soon as you called. He sat across from me. I reviewed every account connected to your household. What did you find? Richard opened the first folder. Something strange. He pushed several printed statements toward me. Luxury clothing stores, electronics, weekend trips, restaurants. None of them surprised me. Then I reached a page that did. The same resort outside Dallas appeared again and again. 9 weekends, over 18 months, always paid with the household expense account. I frowned. I've never been there. I know. Richard slid another document across the desk. Lauren listed those weekends as business conferences when filing your company reimbursement reports. I stared at the dates. Every single one matched weekends she had claimed to be attending real estate seminars. She never attended any seminars. Richard remained quiet. Finally, he said, "Daniel, I think there's more here than overspending." I looked up slowly. "What do you mean?" He opened the second folder. Hotel receipts, restaurant invoices, spa reservations. Every reservation listed 2 guests. None of them included my name. I suddenly remembered something Lauren had said only 3 weeks earlier. Business dinners are exhausting. She had come home carrying an expensive gift bag. I never asked where it came from. I simply believed her. Richard folded his hands. "I think you should hire a divorce attorney." I looked back down at the paperwork. Oddly enough, I wasn't angry anymore. I was simply tired. Very, very tired. At exactly 3:18, my office phone rang. This time I answered. Lauren didn't sound angry anymore. She sounded scared. "Daniel?" "Yes. Ethan says they're taking his truck tomorrow." "Probably. His apartment manager called." "I know. Please." She paused. "We need to talk." I looked out the window. "No. Daniel, we're family." I let several seconds pass. Then I answered quietly. "No, Lauren. You are family." And I ended the call. The next morning was the first time in 13 years I woke up without checking whether anyone else in the house needed something from me. No lunch to pack. No tuition reminder. No insurance payment. No one else's problems. Just silence. I arrived at the office a little before 8. Megan was already waiting outside my door with a hesitant expression. "I probably shouldn't tell you this before coffee. What happened? Your wife came by yesterday evening after everyone left. Did she come inside?" "No. She sat in her car for almost an hour." That didn't surprise me. People usually don't panic when the money stops. They panic when they realize it isn't coming back. Around 9, Richard returned with another folder. I kept digging. He placed several photographs across my desk, not printed from a phone. Security camera stills. The Dallas resort. Lauren. Walking through the lobby beside a man I'd never seen before. Different weekends. Different clothes. Same man. Same hotel. I studied every picture without saying a word. Richard finally broke the silence. "I hired a licensed investigator after I noticed the repeated hotel charges. You did that without asking me?" I was hoping I was wrong. "Were you?" He slowly shook his head. "The man's name is Kevin Brooks. Commercial real estate developer. They've been meeting for almost 2 years. I nodded once. Nothing inside me broke. That had already happened at the barbecue. This simply explained why. Richard handed me one last envelope. There's something else. Inside were copies of emails. Lauren had been forwarding financial information from our household budget to a private Gmail account. Mortgage balance, investment summaries, business revenue, even projected profits from my roofing company. My stomach tightened for the first time all week. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had been planning. Every spreadsheet, every tax return, every business valuation. Someone else had been reading them. Did she have access to the company books? No. Only the household summaries. Good. Richard looked relieved. "But Daniel," He hesitated. I think Kevin expected your company to become part of the divorce. That sentence stayed with me long after Richard left, not because I was shocked, because suddenly Ethan's joke at the barbecue made perfect sense. If Mom divorces you, she'll get half your company anyway. That wasn't a joke. It was something he'd already heard. Maybe around the dinner table. Maybe from Lauren herself. Maybe from Kevin. At 11:15, Megan called through the intercom. Daniel. Yes? There's someone here asking for you. Who? Lauren? Alone? Yes. I thought for a moment. Conference room B. I'll be there in 10 minutes. When I walked inside, Lauren stood immediately. She looked exhausted. No makeup. Hair tied back. For the first time in years, she actually looked her age. Thank you for seeing me. I sat down across from her. She reached into her purse and placed my house keys on the table. I don't want this to become ugly. It already is. She lowered her eyes. I know Ethan crossed the line. Ethan repeated what he'd been taught. Her head snapped up. What does that mean? I slowly slid one photograph across the table. Lauren froze. Then another. Then another. The color disappeared from her face. Daniel, I can explain. I'm sure you can. She picked up one picture with trembling fingers. It's not what you think. I haven't told you what I think. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. After nearly a minute, she whispered, Who gave you these? That isn't important. Her breathing became shallow. Finally, she asked the only question that mattered. How much do you know? I looked directly into her eyes. I know enough not to waste another year of my life. Tears finally appeared. Real ones. Not dramatic, just quiet. I never meant for this to happen. No. You planned it. She covered her face with both hands. For almost a minute, neither of us spoke. When she finally looked up again, she seemed smaller somehow. Kevin ended things 3 months ago. I don't care. He promised we'd have a future together. I don't care. I made a terrible mistake. I nodded. You made hundreds. Another long silence filled the room. Then Lauren quietly asked, Is there any way back? I thought about the barbecue. About Ethan raising his beer. About everyone laughing. About her telling me I wasn't family. Then I answered honestly, No. She closed her eyes. I was afraid you'd say that. I stood. My attorney will contact yours before the end of the week. As I reached the door, Lauren spoke one last time. Daniel, I turned. Ethan doesn't know about Kevin. I know. Please, don't destroy what's left of my relationship with him. I looked at her for several seconds, then answered calmly. That choice stopped being mine the day you taught him my only value was my wallet. Without another word, I opened the conference room door and walked away. Lauren's attorney contacted mine the following Monday. Unlike Lauren, he didn't try to appeal to emotions. He wanted numbers, assets, property, retirement accounts, business valuation. Margaret, my attorney smiled after the call. They expected you to negotiate. I assume we're not? They expected guilt. What do we have? She slid a folder toward me. Your company was established 5 years before the marriage. I know. The headquarters building is owned by a separate LLC. I know. Every expansion came from retained business earnings, not marital income. So? She smiled. So whoever advised Lauren clearly didn't do their homework. For the first time in weeks, I laughed. It wasn't a big laugh, just enough to surprise both of us. Meanwhile, life outside the legal offices kept moving. On Wednesday, the bank repossessed Ethan's truck. I wasn't there. I only received the confirmation email. At first, I expected to feel guilty. Instead, I remembered the toast. You're just a walking ATM. Apparently, the ATM had finally run out of service. That same afternoon, Megan knocked on my office door. Ethan's here. Again? He says he'll wait as long as it takes. I looked at the clock. 5 minutes. When I entered the conference room, Ethan stood immediately. He looked different. Same clothes, same haircut, but none of the confidence from the barbecue remained. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't shaved. Thanks for seeing me. I nodded toward the chair. He didn't sit. I'll stand. Whatever you prefer. For several seconds he stared at the floor. Finally he spoke. I got fired. I said nothing. My boss said I kept missing work because I was trying to deal with everything. Still nothing. My apartment's gone at the end of the month. I remained silent. Then came the sentence I never expected. I didn't think you'd actually do it. I looked at him calmly. What exactly? Stop paying. I believed you when you said I was only paying the bills. His shoulders dropped. I didn't mean it like that. You meant every word. No, you meant every word. The room became quiet. He rubbed both hands across his face. My mom said you'd cool off. I did. He frowned. What? I've never been calmer. That answer seemed to affect him more than shouting ever could. He pulled a folded piece of paper from his jacket. I wrote something. He handed it across the table. I don't want you to read it now. Read it later. I placed it beside me without opening it. I know saying sorry won't fix anything. No. His voice cracked for the first time. I didn't realize how much you actually did. I studied him carefully. For the first time since he was 7 years old, I didn't see Lauren's son. I saw a frightened young man whose entire world had been built on assumptions someone else had taught him. I have one question, I said quietly. He nodded. When you joked about your mother getting half my company, his eyes widened. Where did you hear that? He hesitated, then answered honestly. Kevin, the guy Mom used to talk to. He told us that if she divorced you, none of us would ever have to worry about money again. The room became completely silent. So you knew about him. I thought they were business partners. He swallowed. I swear, I didn't know they were. He couldn't finish the sentence. I believed him. Not because he deserved blind trust, because his reaction couldn't be faked. He looked genuinely sick. I leaned back. Does your mother know you're here? No. What does she think? She thinks you're trying to punish us. And what do you think? He looked straight at me for the first time. I think... He paused. I spent years treating the only man who actually showed up like he was replaceable. Neither of us spoke after that. When he finally stood to leave, he stopped beside the door. I don't expect forgiveness. I know. I just wanted you to hear the truth. After he left, I unfolded the letter. It wasn't dramatic. No excuses. No promises. Just 3 handwritten pages listing every memory he could remember, where I had been there instead of his biological father. Teaching him to drive. Helping with algebra. Sleeping in a hospital chair after he broke his arm. Watching every baseball game. The last sentence was only 8 words. I confused kindness with weakness for far too long. I folded the pages carefully. Unlike Lauren's letter, this one I kept. 2 weeks later, the first settlement meeting took place. Lauren arrived with her attorney. I arrived with Margaret. Nobody smiled. Nobody shook hands. The conference room overlooked downtown Tulsa, but nobody looked outside. Every person's attention stayed fixed on the stack of documents in front of them. Lauren looked thinner than I remembered. She hadn't tried to dress elegantly this time. No expensive jewelry, no designer handbag, just a gray blazer and tired eyes. Margaret began. My client is willing to resolve this without litigation. Lauren's attorney nodded. So is my client. For nearly 2 hours, we discussed assets, timelines, tax obligations, and property. Very little emotion. Mostly numbers. Eventually, Lauren's attorney cleared his throat. Mrs. Carter would like to ask one personal question. Margaret glanced toward me. I nodded. Lauren looked directly at me. Daniel. Yes? Was there ever a point where you considered giving us another chance? I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I remembered the barbecue, the laughter, the toast, the pie being served while I stood there like a stranger paying for someone else's celebration. Finally, I answered, no. She lowered her eyes. I thought maybe after Ethan apologized. Ethan apologized because he understood. I paused. You apologized because everything disappeared. Her attorney shifted uncomfortably. Nobody disagreed. The meeting ended shortly afterward. Outside the building, Margaret walked beside me toward the parking garage. "I've handled divorces for 26 years, she said. "I know. I've never seen someone stay as calm as you." I wasn't calm. She looked surprised. I was finished. 3 months later, the divorce became official. Lauren moved into a small townhouse across town. The company remained mine. The house sold within 3 weeks. I bought a smaller place near a lake outside Broken Arrow. For the first time in years, every room belonged only to me. No arguments, no tension, no pretending. Life settled into a routine again. Work, fishing on Saturday mornings, dinner wherever I felt like eating. Silence stopped feeling lonely. It started feeling expensive. About 6 months later, my phone rang. The caller ID showed Ethan. I almost didn't answer. Almost. "Hello?" "Daniel." His voice sounded different, older. "I know I probably don't deserve another favor." "What is it?" "I graduate next month." I stayed quiet. I paid for school myself after everything happened. "I know. I've been working nights." Another pause. "I wanted to ask." He hesitated. "Would you come?" I looked out across the lake behind my house. A year earlier, I would have answered immediately. Now, I actually thought about it. Finally, I said, yes. Graduation day arrived warm and clear. Families filled the football stadium with flowers, cameras, and balloons. I sat near the top of Section C by myself. Halfway through the ceremony, Ethan spotted me. Even from across the field, I saw his shoulders relax. Afterward, he walked straight toward me, instead of joining the celebration behind him. He wore the same graduation gown as everyone else, but somehow looked nothing like the arrogant young man from the barbecue. "Thanks for coming." "Congratulations." He smiled nervously. "I have something." He handed me a small envelope. Inside was a cashier's check. $5,000. The first real payment. "You don't owe me this." "I know. I owe it to myself." I looked at him for a long moment, then folded the check and slipped it back into the envelope. "Keep it." He frowned. "What?" "Use it for your future." "I can't." "You can." He shook his head. "I spent years believing money solved everything." A faint smile crossed my face. "Then don't spend it. Invest it. For once." He laughed quietly. The first genuine laugh I'd ever heard from him. Before leaving, he stopped beside his car. "You know what? I used to think you stayed because Mom needed you. And now? I think—" He looked toward the stadium one last time. "You stayed because I did." Neither of us spoke after that. He stepped forward and held out his hand. I looked at it for a second, then ignored it. Instead, I pulled him into a brief hug. Only a few seconds. Nothing dramatic. When we stepped apart, his eyes were wet. "So," he said with an embarrassed smile, "does this mean we're okay?" I thought carefully before answering. "No." His smile faded slightly. "We're getting there." He nodded. "I'll take that." That evening, I drove home along Highway 51 with the windows down. The sun was setting over the water. When I reached my driveway, I parked, sat quietly for a minute, and remembered something my father used to say. Respect isn't something people give you because you ask. They give it because they finally realize what life looks like without you. For years, I thought providing for people would make them value me. It didn't. Walking away did, and strangely, that turned out to be the best investment I ever made. Almost a year passed before I heard Lauren's name again. Richard called one Friday afternoon. "You won't believe who applied for a job." "Who?" "Kevin Brooks." I almost laughed. "The same Kevin?" "The very same." Apparently, his real estate company had collapsed after 2 major developments fell through. Investors pulled out, lawsuits followed, and within months, the business he'd bragged about had practically disappeared. "He listed your company as a previous client," Richard added. "He never was." "I know." "What did you do?" "I threw the resume away. Some things didn't deserve a second thought." A few weeks later, I received another unexpected message. It was from Ethan. "Dinner. My treat this time." We met at a small barbecue restaurant outside Tulsa. Nothing expensive. Plastic trays, paper napkins, the kind of place where nobody cared what car you drove. Halfway through dinner, Ethan looked embarrassed. I finally understand something. What? When you kept paying for everything. I thought it meant the money wasn't important. He smiled sadly. I never realized what it actually cost you. It wasn't the money. I know. It was being invisible. He nodded slowly. I spent years watching Mom make every decision. I copied her. You did. I'm sorry. This time the apology felt different. It wasn't trying to get something back. It wasn't trying to fix the past. It was simply true. When the waitress brought the check, Ethan reached for it immediately. I've got it. You don't have to. I know. But I want to. I let him. Not because I couldn't afford dinner. Because for the first time, he wasn't paying for food. He was taking responsibility. As we walked into the parking lot, he stopped beside his truck. Not the expensive pickup I'd bought years earlier. A 12-year-old Ford with faded paint and nearly 200,000 miles. He smiled. I bought it myself. I can tell. It isn't pretty. It doesn't have to be. It belongs to me. I understood exactly what he meant. A month later, Margaret emailed the final closing documents from every remaining legal matter. There were no more signatures needed. No loose ends. No unexpected claims. Everything was finished. That evening I drove home, opened the garage, and noticed something sitting on the shelf where I'd stored old boxes after moving. The white dress shirt from the barbecue. The wine stain was still there, dark red against faded cotton. I unfolded it carefully. For nearly a minute I simply looked at it. A year earlier I had kept it as a reminder. Now it felt unnecessary. I carried it outside to the trash bin, held it over the opening, then smiled to myself. No, I whispered. It wasn't a reminder anymore. It was just an old shirt. I dropped it into the bin and closed the lid. Sometimes people think the happiest ending is revenge. It isn't. The happiest ending is the morning you wake up and realize you haven't thought about them in days. That's when you know you've finally gotten your life back. And that's exactly where mine began. 6 months later, I received an invitation I never expected. It wasn't from Lauren. It wasn't from Ethan. It came from the Tulsa Children's Foundation. A handwritten note was attached. Mr. Carter, Ethan told us you were the person who taught him that responsibility matters more than success. We'd be honored if you attended our annual scholarship dinner. I almost declined. Then curiosity won. The event was held in a renovated warehouse overlooking the Arkansas River. Around 200 people filled the room. Business owners, teachers, students, and local volunteers. I spotted Ethan almost immediately. He wasn't standing with executives or trying to impress anyone. He was helping elderly guests find their tables. When he noticed me, he smiled. Not the confident grin he used to wear, just a quiet smile. I'm glad you came. So am I. Halfway through the evening, the director stepped onto the stage. This year's Volunteer Mentor Award goes to someone who reminded us that second chances aren't given. They're earned. Ethan Brooks. The room applauded. As Ethan walked toward the podium, he looked briefly in my direction. I wasn't planning to tell this story, he began, but I think I should. He took a slow breath. A year ago, I believed respect came automatically if someone loved you. I was wrong. I confused generosity with obligation. I confused kindness with weakness. And I hurt the one person who had never once failed me. The room grew completely silent. I don't know if he'll ever consider me family again. He looked straight at me. But if I'm standing here tonight trying to become a better man, it's because he stopped protecting me from the consequences of my own actions. There wasn't a single mention of Lauren. Not one. After the ceremony, dozens of people came over to congratulate Ethan. I waited near the exit. Eventually, he caught up with me outside. I hope I didn't embarrass you. You didn't. I meant every word. I know. He hesitated. Mom moved to Colorado. I heard. She's starting over. I hope it works out. He studied my face for a moment. You really don't hate her anymore, do you? I thought about the question honestly. No. What changed? I stopped carrying something that wasn't mine anymore. He nodded as if that answer made perfect sense. Before leaving, he handed me a small framed photograph. It had been taken at his graduation, the two of us standing side by side. On the back, he'd written only one sentence: "Thank you for acting like a father, even when I refused to act like a son." When I got home, I placed the picture beside the old photograph of my own father. For a long time, I simply looked at both of them. Then I switched off the lights upstairs, walked onto the back porch, and listened to the quiet. Some endings arrive with shouting. Some arrive in courtrooms. Mine arrived in silence. The day I realized I no longer needed anyone to admit they had been wrong. Because by then, I had already built a life that proved I was right to walk away.